All right. And I am going to my last guest for the day, and definitely not the least, one of my favorite people to talk to, Professor Richard Wolff. Professor Richard Wolff is professor of economic emeritus, University of Massachusetts Amherst, and visiting professor of the graduate program in international affairs of the New School University in New York City. He's founder of Democracy at Work and host of their nationally syndicated show, Economic Update. By the way, that is a fantastic show. I've watched that show for years, and you have often been on the pulse of what has been taking place and making, let's say, what has been taking place in a larger global world understandable, given a workable context to understand it in a way that media just kind of drops the ball. His latest book, The System is the Sickness When Capitalism Fails to Save Us from Pandemics or Itself, is available with other books such as Understanding Socialism and Understanding Marxism at democracyatwork.info. Professor, welcome to the show. You doing okay this morning?
I'm doing all right, Jamal, and I'm very glad to be talking with you.
Well, thank you. There is something that I have been fascinated by that has been taking place over the last, I guess, few weeks. I'll go a few weeks since Donald Trump has been in office. So Trump enacts his sanction, or let's say tariff war. This turns out to be illegal, so the courts puts a knife in him, but then they reinstate the tariffs because he went back begging to the appeals court, appellate court. But over the course of the time frame that he's been doing this, he's been attacking Jerome Powell. And he's been saying, oh, Jerome Powell is not cutting interest rates. I think Jerome Powell is doing this country a disservice. How dare Jerome Powell not cut interest rates? Even going so far as to say, I would fire Jerome Powell, and he'll leave if I tell him to leave. And then when the bond markets flip out, he's like, what do you mean fire Jerome Powell? I never said anything about fire Jerome Powell. He apparently brought Powell to the White House for his first face-to-face meeting. And of course, normal Trump. Yeah, it's a travesty that you don't lower interest rates. Why is he attacking Powell so fervently on this issue of lowering interest rates when he is the one who is creating all sorts of havoc in the market?
Good. I'm glad you asked. And for once, it's easy to answer the question. Everything that Mr. Trump is doing is endangering the economic situation for most people in the United States. And let me go through very quickly. If you put a tariff on everything, a tariff is a tax. It's just a name of a particular kind of tax. And it is most like a sales tax. You know, if you go into the store and you buy a shirt, they'll tell you, okay, the shirt costs $15, and here's the sales tax on top of that. And if you add the sales tax, you're going to be out $17.11 to get that $15 shirt. So for you, for all practical purposes, it's a $17 shirt, not a $15 shirt. So if Mr. Trump imposes a tariff, which is a tax on everything that comes into the United States from the rest of the world, he's simply adding a sales tax, which he wouldn't dare do because the American people are in economic difficulties where this is the last thing on earth they would want or would support. But by calling it a tariff, he fools half the population because they don't know what that is. No one has ever taught it to them. It's not their fault. It's not part of the curriculum in our schools to teach this sort of stuff. My students in the university don't know what it means. I have to explain it to them. But that's what it is. It's a tax. And for a population that is already straining, more than half the American people cannot come up with $400 for an emergency. They just don't have it. The only way they can get that money is by really cutting back on the food or the health care they get, you know, basics of a decent life. So he can't do what he wants to do by honestly calling it a tax. He calls it a tariff, and it's hurting the population. It's going to drive our economy down because when the tariff raises the price of everything, and let's remember, we as a country are more dependent on stuff coming in from the outside than at any other time since we were a colony of Great Britain, 100 years, 200, 300 years ago. So, I give an example. You got up this morning. You probably had a cup of coffee. Coffee comes from outside the United States, right? And maybe, like me, you put sugar in your coffee. Well, the sugar comes in from outside. We don't produce the sugar that we consume. And the cup probably was made in China, and the silverware was made either in Bangladesh. Before you're done, you can't turn around. This is going to hurt your pocketbook. And we are, as a people, going to buy less stuff because the money we have, right, it's not going up by 10%. If we got an increase in our wages by 10%, we could pay a 10% increase in our prices, and we wouldn't be better off, but we wouldn't be worse off. But 99% of us aren't getting 10% increase this year. That's not happening nowhere. So, in fact, it is going to reduce what the people can buy, and that means other people are going to lose their jobs because less goods are being purchased. So, long story short, the tariff wars threaten us with two things we don't want: a cutback in jobs and work because people can't afford, and an inflation, or rising prices. And when you have those two things together, economics has a word: stagflation. The combination of stagnation, no job growth, in fact, you losing jobs, and rising prices. And as if that weren't enough, we had the crazy Elon Musk firing hundreds of thousands of public employees, make the whole situation worse. Okay, so that's the setting. What does Mr. Trump need? He needs some offset. He needs something to happen that will not allow what I just said to play out. Here comes Mr. Powell. If he can drop the interest rates, bring them way down, it'll make it cheaper for companies to borrow and for individuals. If you drop the interest rates, for example, the credit card company, if you have one, will lower the amount of interest they charge on your outstanding balance. All right. If you need to buy a car, the monthly payment for that car will be lower if the interest rates are reduced. Right. Your landlord will have less pressure to squeeze you on the rent if the interest he has to pay is lower. So Mr. Trump wants to come in there and get this head of the Federal Reserve to help him in his political pickle that he brought on himself. That's what he wants. And Mr. Powell stands there. He's a Republican. Mr. Powell is a conservative. He's more like Trump than he is different from him. But Mr. Powell has to say to Mr. Trump, here's a problem, Jack. If I lower the interest rates, the whole world, which is hesitant in a way it never has been for almost a century now, the rest of the world lends huge amounts of money, trillions of dollars, into the United States. Americans do not understand that our standard of living, and this has been true for 30 years, depends on a vast flow of lended money from the rich people of the world, from other governments in the world, into the United States. But it comes in part because of the interest they can earn when they lend that money. And if the government lowers the interest rate, they're not going to lend it to us. And if you think we're in trouble now, I got news for you. If that loan money coming into the United States were to stop, we're talking about a level of economic trouble that makes what we're in now look like nothing. So Mr. Powell has to say to Mr. Trump, I can't lower the interest rates. It's too dangerous. Mr. Trump doesn't care if he's shown us anything. He could give a flying you-know-what. He's taking care of himself and his policy and how he looks. That's his job. And if that causes a longer-term problem for America, he's not going to be with us longer term. right? He's got only
Yeah.
3.5 years left of this, and is now looking good for him now. So that's why he needs Mr. Powell to do something that Mr. Powell knows he cannot do.
But that also creates a problem when the debt comes due for the US also,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Because we have to pay. And speaking of that, two things I want to add to what you said to that: depreciation of the dollar and Trump's big, beautiful bill, as he calls it. The effectively the fat, ugly, attack the poor bill, as I like to dub it. The depreciation of the dollar. So I am sitting in Malaysia right now. I was in Albania for 2 months. And what I noticed was over the course of the time frame that I've been away, what I can buy gets less and less and less, meaning my purchasing power with the dollar versus, let's say, the euro, they use the lek versus the lek, or for that matter, versus the RM, is weaker. And you could see it. Like when I had to pay for stuff in euros, you could see it over the course of just like a month or two that you're paying out more. What started off as one amount ended up being like 120, 125, etc. Um, that is also damaging.
Yes.
Why is that taking place? Is that taking place as a direct result of the? And I get for the audience, this is how the sausage is made, but I am curious about this on my own self. Why is that happening? Why is the depreciation of the currency taking place? And is he depreciating the currency on purpose?
Okay. First, let me tell you what happened to the dollar so you know, because you're not going to get that from Mr. Trump because it's not the kind of news he wants people to have. And that's the only truth of it. The dollar has depreciated, depending exactly on how you count, between 8 and 10%
Right.
from the day of his inauguration. And there is no way anyone could excuse him from being part of the reason why that's happening. The most prevalent explanation that I've seen in the financial press goes like this. Once upon a time, the United States was conceived, and this has been true for at least the last 75 years, ever since World War II.
Mm-hmm.
The United States was conceived as the safest place to hold your wealth. In other words, if you're a millionaire in Malaysia, or you're a rich company in Africa, or Asia, Latin America, it doesn't matter, or Europe, if you have wealth, you don't want to have all your wealth in one particular place, whatever country you happen to be in, because things could change and your money could disappear. So
Yeah.
you take a portion of it and you put, not all of it, but a portion of it, and you put it where it is safest to be held. And that, until now, was the United States, at least for the last 75 years. Before that, it was England. It was you put your money in London. Now you put your money in the United States. And here's how it's done. You set up a bank account in New York and you put money in there. Is that legal? Yes. Can you do that? Yes. Are there people around the world who do that? Loads of them. Companies do it, businesses do it, individuals do it. Here's the second thing. You buy an apartment on Fifth Avenue. You spend $3 million, you get a lovely apartment. Are you in the apartment? No. You're not doing it because you're going to live in that apartment. So 3 times a year, your niece and nephew are given a ticket to New York where they go and they do shopping all day long, living in the apartment on Fifth Avenue, having a wonderful time, and then they go back to where their normal lives are.
Yeah.
You're doing that because that's a way of holding wealth. The value of that apartment over time will grow along with other real estate. So, or you buy land in San Diego, or you buy resort property somewhere, or you invest in the stock market here in the United States. These are all ways of holding wealth. But for people to do that, they have to buy dollars, because you can't buy the land in San Diego with other currency. You have to pay with a dollar. And the stock market requires you to pay for the shares you buy with dollars. So there's what we call a demand for dollars, and that makes the dollar valuable. Now, suppose you have a president who looks like he's unhinged, right? Who's acting in ways that you've not seen before, who talks in a way that's different, who says one thing one day, the opposite the next day, and on the third day denies he said either of the things of the last 2 days. So we don't know what the tariffs are right now. We don't have any idea what the actual tariffs are across the board.
Right.
And I'm not even talking about the retaliatory tariffs that are coming once the countries around the world know what the United States is doing to them with tariffs. They're going to do their version to us. No one knows what to do. No one knows how to plan. No one knows where to invest because you can't figure out what's profitable and what isn't. And so, long story short, the people around the world are saying, if you have wealth in America, this is the time to reduce that wealth. You don't dump it all, but you don't put all your eggs in the proverbial same basket. And when the United States stops being the safe, the secure place it once was, that's a signal to every business, to every person wealthy enough to have wealth, to say it's time to reduce. Here's how they say it on Wall Street: reduce your exposure to the United States. Right? That's what's going on. People are dumping. They're taking, for example, that apartment on Fifth Avenue. They're calling the realtor and they're saying, sell it. And as soon as they get the $3 million that the apartment is worth, they cash that $3 million in for euros or for Japanese yen or for Chinese yuan, because it's more safe now to have that wealth in a diverse collection of. Look, if you want the condensed version, this is all part of the decline of the American empire that we are living through. And you'll never hear that from Mr. Trump because he doesn't want that associated with him. Yeah. But to be fair, you won't hear it from Mr. Biden, and you didn't hear it from Kamala Harris either. It's a taboo in America. We don't discuss it, but that's in the end. That's what's going on. The whole rest of the world is watching that the absolutely dominant country of the last 75 years isn't dominant anymore, and it is not coming back.
You get half of the country that believes we're going to go into a recession. You get the other half that believe we're going to have a booming economy. I have no idea how that split stayed in place, but that was one of the most recent polls. I think it was like 46, 47.
Yeah, no, you're right. And look, here's what people should understand. It's a testimony to the power of hype, to the power of the media, mainstream, not mainstream. It's what they call in Washington talking up. You talk up whatever it is you want people to believe. In my opinion, and I'm born in America, I've lived and worked here all my life. I call it advertising culture. Think about it. What does an advertiser do? If I make, I don't know, breakfast cereal, I'm now going to put a poster up on the, advertising poster up on a road that people have to drive by, and so their eyes glance up at the billboard. What is the billboard going to say? It's going to show you a picture of a happy child digging into a bowl of that cereal. It's going to tell you it's nutritious, it's got vitamin. It's going to tell you every good thing it can think of. Real good qualities, and then they'll make up a bunch too. It's got this cereal has got A649. Doesn't mean anything, but it makes you wonder, oh goodness, I need A649 so I'm healthy. And what don't do? They never say a word about what's bad about it. Right. They don't tell you that 1 out of 10 people get diarrhea if they eat this cereal. Oh no, they'll never tell you anything like that. So advertising is fundamentally dishonest. It is a way of talking. in which you hype whatever you think is positive and you hide whatever is negative. And our politicians have learned this skill. So they tell you everything they think will help make them look good, and they hide everything. Look at I know you were just talking about Emmanuel Macron. So
Yeah.
his wife punches him in the face, and it doesn't look good. So he has to send out his people to make this go away. And so he and the people around him start telling one lie after another in order to
We
make
were just
it look
playing.
like she was getting ready to give him a big kiss
Yeah.
rather than what she obviously was doing. Right. And we're all supposed to be stupid enough to fall for it. The example I once used in my class with my students loved is that ad for soap. So there's this lovely person, soaping themselves, getting clean in the shower. And along it comes and says, not only will this soap get you clean, but it will revolutionize your sex life. And everybody does what you do, Jamal. Everybody giggles because we all know what BS this is. We know that the whole point of it is to get money out of our wallet to buy that soap.
Professor, what's the name of that soap, by the way?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I need it. Just curious. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's advertising. It's childish. It makes us all stupid. It assumes we're all stupid. It floods us with information we know has been paid for to get us to buy whatever it is being advertised.
Yeah.
And so in a large part we discount it, which we should. But it means we don't really know very well what the difference is between fake and real.
Right.
It's
It
easy for
destroys
Mr.
credibility.
Trump, right? The fake news, fake news. People are so used to fake that they can be easily persuaded this is fake, that is fake. And we're lost. We're lost as a people because we've given up on the belief that it's important when you're talking to someone to be honest, to say honestly, this is what I see that is positive, and this is what I see that is negative, because all things have both of that in them, and you're not being honest if you pretend otherwise.
Are they doing this on purpose? There's an idea that they're trying to depreciate the dollar intentionally.
Yes, part of them are. I mean, every business in America is now terrified. And if I can get this across, we will have done a good job today, Jamal. Every business that sells abroad is terrified. And most American businesses, directly or indirectly, now depend in part on markets outside the United States. Why are they all terrified? They're terrified because the rest of the world is angry at the tariffs that Mr. Trump is imposing because it hurts them. They can't remember my example of the $15 shirt that ends up costing $17 because of the tariff. Well, if you're a foreign company and their tariffs are going up, you're going to sell fewer shirts in the United States because Americans can't pay that higher price. That happens everywhere. So they feel hurt. The government they didn't elect, Mr. Trump, has just done something that hurts them. And you know what they do? They go to their government, just as the Americans would, and they say, they're hurting us. You need to do the same to them to offset the hurt. In other words, if I'm a shirt maker in, I'll pick a country, Italy, I want a tariff because that way the Americans will have less sales in Italy because you got to pay a tariff to bring the American shirt in. And what I lose in America, I can make up by selling more shirts here in Italy. So they're going to retaliate. But for American companies, this is terrible. They don't want that any more than the Italian company wants the tariffs here. So what are they going to do? They go to Mr. Trump. They did that and appealed to him. Don't do this. That didn't work. He needs it for his political project. So he told them, get lost. I'm not listening to you. All right. Now they have a second chance. Drop the value of the dollar, because that means a foreigner with an Italian, for example, who uses euros, because that's the currency that Italy uses, if you drop the value of the dollar, they'll get more dollars for their euro, and that will drop the cost to them of anything they want to do in dollars. That will cancel out some or all of the tariff. So the deal they want, and they went to Mr. Trump, is okay, we'll stop beating up on you for this stupid tariff that you're imposing if you get the interest rates down, because then the dollar will depreciate and will be offsetting. So he's under pressure, and Mr. Trump has to worry that he says to them, I'm not going to worry about the interest rates. I'm not going to worry about the dollar. I'm not going to worry about the business. Then they're going to say, okay, we're not going to worry about you, and you're going to be president another 10 minutes.
I see.
Think about it. If the business community of America turns against Mr. Trump, he's toast. He's done. He won't get anything through the United States Congress. He'll be lucky if he survives, the rest of his term. He has to have the business community supporting him. That's why you had the big, beautiful tax bill, because that's an enormous bribe of the government, of the business community, to suck up the tariffs, which are not good for them, to suck up the devalued dollar, because he's made it worth their while by saying, look, here's an enormous gift to you. I'll continue the tax cuts I gave you in 2017, and I'll give you a whole bunch extra new ones on top of it.
One last question before I let you go, and it's on the big, beautiful tax bill. They are putting $20 trillion on an already $36 trillion debt. Now, if they are cutting our AAA rating, I believe it was Moody's. I think that was the last AAA rating. If they're cutting that because their argument is, okay, you guys are A, unsustainable. Right. B, you seem to have no capacity to raise revenue. You're spending $2 trillion a year, and your president is completely unhinged.
Right.
And now you're putting $20 trillion more on the debt. How is that a bribe? Like, it seems like it makes the situation worse, not better. And do you see a point where that becomes a breaking point? Like, the notion of U.S. being $100 trillion in debt seems to be outlandish, but it seems that that's the path that we're effectively on. At what point does it actually, where people are like, we're done. We're not buying your debt anymore?
Jamal, you're 100% correct. And everybody knows this. Everybody who pays attention understands. You cannot continue to expand a debt as fast as this country is doing it when your ability to pay that is not rising anywhere near as big as the debt. Right. And it is in that way like a person who is in love with their credit card and can't get through their head that if you keep giving one merchant after another your credit card and you keep building up your balance, you're not going to be able to pay, and then very bad things happen to you. You have to declare bankruptcy. You're not entitled to get another card for several years. All the things that happen when that. Everybody knows it, but we don't have a political system that can handle that understanding. Why? Because most politicians are in there for a short time. Mr. Trump has to do what he has to do to make himself whatever it is he wants to make in the remaining 3.5 years, unless Steve Bannon can get him a third term, which is not likely. Okay? Yeah. So he knows his time is limited. He knew his time was limited the first time he was president. Most of the things he said he was going to do then, he didn't do. Most of the things that needed to be done then, like, for example, reining in the deficits, he didn't do that. Right. We don't have a wall between us and Mexico. And we sure as hell don't have a wall paid for by Mexico. He promised that would happen. Blah, blah. And you know what he did? Every politician understands that. You do what makes you look good now. Then you go to the next higher. You stop being a congressperson, you'll be a senator, and then you'll be a vice president. The damage you do is for the people who come later. It's their problem. You've graduated to the next stage. That's a political system destined for collapse because it disconnects the politician from the responsibility of what the politician does. So we don't have anybody in a position to do it. By the way, if you talk to the few senators, and there are not many, who understand this stuff, they're not going to disagree with you. They know what you just said is true. They know that these are unsustainable debts. But Mr. Schumer, for example, who represents the New York financial community, the senator from New York, he pushes spending money because that's the Democratic Party way of getting voters.
Yeah.
And the Republicans hold back while giving tax cuts to the rich and the business. They both do stuff that's good for them and that worsens the deficit. And they all complain about the deficit. And this stupid charade is what we call American politics. It's a disaster. And you're right. Eventually, and by the way, eventually it's getting closer. That's what the declining value of the dollar shows us. The rest of the world is not playing this stupid game. They're not going to get caught. If America gets in debt much more than it already is, you're going to see either from the right wing or from the left wing or from both. Here's a prediction I make to you. There are going to be political voices saying, we're not spending the money we need to keep our people healthy, to educate our children, to maintain our roads, and instead we're taking our tax money and giving it to rich people in interest on the national debt, many of whom are not Americans. The largest holder of American debt of the government of the United States is the government of Japan.
Yep.
The second largest is the People's Republic of China. And Americans are going to, or the UK by now.
And then China.
Americans are going to say, wait, I'm not voting for a politician who pays back the debt that shouldn't have been borrowed to a foreigner while my kid can't get food enough in the food stamp program. And American politicians are what are they going to say? I'm going to protect the interest. They're going to be voted out of office. And you know who's going to come in? The people who say, you rich people who lend to the government, you're going to wait after we take care of our people, their health, their education, their food stamps, their, you name it. After that, if there's something left, we'll give you some interest. But you're coming last online, not first. Whoa, that thought occurs to people around the world. I can assure you, they don't want to be holding debt of the U.S. government when what I just described begins to happen. And let me assure you, it has happened in many, many other countries, transformed their politics. So the idea that that can't happen here is silly.
Professor Richard Wolff, fantastic breakdown. A bit like that, fantastic breakdown. I have a bright audience.
Look, I'm an optimistic person. I think things are going to get better, but that's because I count on the mass of people to have a deeper kind of wisdom and to recognize that this system is not working anymore. And I know it's difficult to face that. I know I wish it weren't the case, but it is. And in the end, like any doctor will tell you, you're better off facing what the problem is than pretending that it isn't there.
I just don't know when that is. If we're going to be $56 trillion in debt. Trump will get his big, beautiful bill. I don't believe for a moment that they're going to stop him from doing it. He is going to make aggressive cuts to healthcare. I mean, they're taking like $1 trillion nearly out of Medicaid. Yeah. Elon Musk, as you pointed out, the world's richest man, has been going after middle class people who basically are at the other end of the economic spectrum. And so it's like,
Jamal, if I allow me to interrupt you, please. You're absolutely right. But that's picture. that picture of Elon Musk prancing around a stage
Yep.
holding that chainsaw, that's going to come back and haunt that man for the rest of his life. That image of the world's richest man chopping down average middle class Americans with
Yep.
government jobs, that's that's a mistake on a scale that's, right up there with Napoleon thinking he could take over all of Europe. Napoleon ended up in jail. Mr. Elon Musk will be lucky if he gets that outcome.
Professor Richard Wolff, he is Professor of Economic Emeritus at the University of Massachusetts Amherst and visiting professor at the graduate program at International Affairs and New School University, New York City. And by the way, I should ask you, is this still correct? I want to make sure that your bias is still correct. There's been a few people who's like, dude, that is a year ago, that is 2 years ago, that is 3 years ago.
Well, the latest book I did is called Understanding Capitalism. And that's available at democracyatwork.info.
Okay, Understanding Capitalism. Okay, but everything else is still good. All right. And as you point out, he's founder of Democracy at Work, host of the nationally syndicated show, Economic Update. Again, a fantastic show if you like what you just heard and you're trying to get this kind of sense, this behind the scenes understanding of what's going on, that is the show for you. His latest book is Capitalism, Understanding Capitalism. There's
Right.
that one. And you can get it at democracyatwork.info.
Right.
And what can people find you? I know they can find you at Democracy at Work. They can find you on Twitter at Prof Wolff. Is there anywhere else that you either put out articles or anything?
Yeah, Democracy at Work, both YouTube and Substack. You'll find all of our stuff there.
Excellent. Professor, thank you for this. You have
My pleasure, Jamal. And thank you for having the kind of program that talks about these issues. It's really a national service.
Oh, I'm fascinated by this stuff. So I thank you for being willing to come on and discuss it. You be safe.
My pleasure.
All right. Love that man. He is